We're here today with Chief Master Sergeant Francisco Ramirez. He's a Flight Engineer Superintendent for the 165th Air Wing, and we'll be asking for his perspective on leadership. Good afternoon, Chief.
Good afternoon, sir.
Thought we'd start with a question about how did you get your start in the military?
Well, I was born into a military family, having a father that served for 26 years in the Army. So joining the military just came naturally for me. Originally worked on going into the Army, but parents kind of vectored me towards a different branch of service. Went to go sign up, and the recruiter was not in the office the day I went to go sign up. And a couple of days later, I had a gentleman call me from the Georgia Air National Guard. And at that given point in time in my life, I did not know anything about the National Guard as a whole. And so I drove out here to Savannah Airport and met the recruiter and saw the airplanes and found out that Savannah had its own little hometown Air Force that did just about everything that the active duty Air Force did, so I signed that day. And 26 years later, here I am.
What was your initial duty when you first joined the Air Guard?
When I originally joined in July 1985, I was an aircraft fuel systems mechanic, and I worked for the 165th Consolidated Aircraft Maintenance Squadron, which is no longer known as an entity today in the Air Force. And I worked in that capacity for just under 2 years before I was asked to come over to the operations group.
What was your first leadership position like, and what did you learn in that position?
The first leadership position I probably had here in the wing was when I came on board as a full-time personnel. I was assigned as the non-commissioned officer in charge of the A3 office, which we called back then current operations. And I had the responsibility of scheduling the wing's aircraft for missions all over the world. And I was responsible for scheduling the airplanes, the local flying schedule, managing the man days, and managing the dollars that went with that. So it was a pretty big responsibility when I started that job a few years back.
What, as you were handling the scheduling and growing into that position, do you remember any lessons that you learned along the way as you went essentially from follower into a leadership position?
Yeah, many lessons. The current operations shop was a very joint and dynamic office because we worked with all branches of the service. And one of the things that we had to learn pretty quickly is every branch of service has its own terminology and acronyms. And you know, an acronym that we normally use here in the Air Force might not be the same in the Army. So we would write something down thinking one, and it was actually, they meant something else. So learning the different, you know, terminology used by all branches of service was a challenging event at times, but it was also a rewarding and exciting time because you never came to work and had the same problem every day. It was always something different, and you just worked through it, and it was a constant, which was kind of nice.
Now, from your initial entry and then growing in the A3 up into your current senior leadership position, what were the events or the experiences that shaped you or your way of looking at leadership?
Leadership to me is, for me, is really all about honesty and the core values. The Air Force core values of integrity first, service before self, excellence in all we do. I always tell the airmen that work with me and work for me, if you make your decisions based upon the core values, you can never go wrong. It's when you start venturing away from the core values is when you're going to open yourself up. And also tell my people to always be honest. We're all going to make mistakes. I've made many mistakes in my career, and that's helped form who I am today. And basically, as a leader, I tell people to be honest. And sometimes the truth hurts, but I think it's important that if I tell my people where they're at and where they're heading, they can make better decisions. And you know, knowledge is power. And the more an individual knows, the better decisions they can make about their career and which way they're headed.
I think the expression that the Adjutant General often uses is underwriting mistakes. We have to give folks room to make mistakes so that they can grow, and that can be frustrating and challenging as a leader.
Yes, sir, it is.
But it seems to be a necessary part of helping.
One of the things I tell the people in the operations group, I'm the senior non-commissioned officer in the operations group, and I always tell the enlisted men and women in the group that the most important weapon system we have in the military today is the person, the people. And as a senior NCO, if I can take care of those people and provide the things that they need and be upfront and honest with them, they'll go a long way.
what leadership challenges are unique to your unit, or maybe even to your position? What unique challenges do you see in your normal operations?
Well, the 165th Operations Group, we have our group is like no other entity probably in a lot of other units located in the Guard. We're a flying organization, so we maintain a 365-day, 7-day-a-week operation, 24 hours a day. When we have people come into our group, it's not a 1 week in a month thing or 2 weeks in the summer for our people. As aircrew members, we have to maintain currencies in a number of different events, and we're flying all over the world every day of the week in all hours. So managing our full-time force and our traditional force and making sure we don't overstress any one entity of that moving organization is probably the biggest challenge that we face, because you can only take and push a person so long before they have to get a break, or you have to give them some time to renegotiate. And working with our traditionals, you know, we have probably in my personal opinion, the most outstanding traditional flying force in the Air Force, because our guys continue to volunteer. And we ask a lot of them today. And it's just incredible to see these guys, you know, make the personal sacrifices and make the career sacrifices that some of them do to come out here and support this nation, especially during a time of war. And, you know, as a supervisor, I feel like if they're going to give 100%, I need to give 110%, so they always know that I have their back if something happens. And it's overwhelming to see these guys. The unit here, you know, we maintain a very high ops tempo, and our mission capability rate is, you know, above and beyond. So it's really awesome. And, you know, it's different because most people, when they join the Guard, they're looking at a 1 week in a month, 2 week in a summer. And in a flying squadron, it is a full-time, part-time job.
What experience or event do you think best illustrates what it means to be a leader?
What event? Since becoming the flight engineer superintendent, you know, it's one thing when you schedule units and organizations to deploy. Now it's more down to an individual level. When we deploy overseas for any type of contingency operation or just a normal rotation somewhere, you know, as a supervisor, I handpick all of my men and women who are going to go. And so I take that real serious, because I need to look at all their qualifications and see who's mentally and physically prepared to take a contingency deployment. And so it's a constant thought in my mind, you know, because I'm asking these young men and women to do things that the average person's probably not going to ever have to do, and be involved in some things. And it's a demanding challenge to keep that all in perspective.
And certainly demands that you know a lot about your people, so that you can make those decisions in an informed and timely manner, which can always be quite a challenge, especially with the traditional Guardsmen, because you're not seeing them. I mean, you're seeing them pretty frequently, but.
Yes, sir. I have the section and the people that I work for and that work for me. We're a very tight-knit family, and we're always in touch with one another, either emails, phones. My phone rings at all hours of the night with, you know, either military problems or personal problems. So as a supervisor, as a senior NCO, sometimes you have to be a chaplain, sometimes you have to be a counselor,
Sure.
sometimes you just have to be a friend. And, you know, like that, I listen to a lot of issues, and I try to pass on advice as best I can. And so far, it's worked fairly decently.
Cool. Looking back into your career, or maybe even earlier than that, who was the best leader that you've ever worked with, and why were they the best?
Well, that's going to be my dad. Didn't really work for him. It was a father-son relationship, but he was probably old school Army, and he always taught me. I've known about integrity my whole life, so when the core values came out, that was just sugar on the cake for me. But my father always taught me that, you know, if you tell somebody you're going to do something, you do it. And if you don't do it, you need to have a really good reason why you did not do it. And it's very important, in my opinion, if I tell a man or a woman that I'm going to do something for them, I do that in a timely manner. And I want people to know that, you know, if they come to me with a problem, I'm going to do everything I can to fix that problem, or give them an answer on how they can fix that problem. So I think my dad is probably my leader.
Cool. What advice would you give to Guardsmen who are trying to develop themselves as professionals or as leaders? Where should they focus?
I think Guardsmen today, they're coming up. We just had a meeting, a conference a couple weeks ago, and we talked about generations. And it's very interesting to look at the different generations. And you have the now generation, the microwave generation, the baby boom, and all that. And we're all different. And we all have to take that into consideration and perspective. You know, when I joined the Guard, I knew things were going to go slow. Some of the new younger kids, it's all about, I want to be promoted now. I would probably tell people today, stay focused and stay persistent. The goal's there, set them, and keep pressing. No matter what happens, keep pressing for that goal. Our country and our Department of Defense is going through some amazing times right now. We don't know what's going to happen. But I would always tell them, stay focused and stay the course. And ask questions.
Absolutely, that's fantastic advice. Well, thank you very much for spending some time with us today to give us your perspective on leadership.
Thank you, sir.